Buenos días. Bonjour. Ohayo gozaimasu. Es lunes. Nous sommes lundi. Getsuyobi desu yo. It's Metacognition Monday, and it's time for us to talk about how brain science works. I'm trying to remember where I got this list from. I think it must be Adeyemi Stembridge. But today we're going to talk about teacher credibility. Okay, this has a huge Hattie effect size. Hattie is this researcher who studied all the important things that we teachers can do to help students learn. Okay, now teacher credibility has nothing to do with I'm not your friend. Okay, I'm your teacher. All right, I'm not a nerd to win you over. I'm a nerd because I like being a nerd. Okay, so I know many of you are not nerds. This has what I do has nothing to do with me trying to be your buddy or pal. It's everything I do is um, do I understand what I'm telling you? Have I thought deeply about it? When I plop a game down on the desk, can I explain the rules of the game to you? Have I played the game before? Um, can I play it with you? Could I sit down and play it with you? When you get stuck, have I thought so deeply about the game that I know how you're going to get stuck, where you're going to get stuck, and how to get you out of that? Can I give you clues when you get stuck? How clearly did I explain the rules? Am I enthusiastic about the game? Do I have a solid reason why I chose this game to help work on this skill? Um, can I use the game to help me learn how to teach you better? Am I watching you carefully while you play the game and noticing where you need support? Okay, so I think all those things give me credibility as a teacher so that you know how I'm using stuff in the classroom, and then I can effectively use it to teach you better. So this first thing on the list that I have, and I think it must be Adeyemi Stembridge, who's a teacher and researcher. It might have been A.J. Giuliani, another famous teacher researcher. So I'm just going to go through what they had in the list of credibility. Okay, number one, my teacher's good at their job. All right. So for me, what I do is I tell you all the embarrassing mistakes that I made when I was learning the language. I can guarantee you I accidentally said soy calor instead of tango calor. Okay? Hugely embarrassing. Absolutely hugely embarrassing. I tell you about the connections that I made. I was staying with Spanish the other day. I just told you guys that when I was learning the word un cartel, I was having trouble remembering un cartel. So I imagined in myself a big poster of a drug cartel. And then I didn't have a problem memorizing that. So I tell you how it was for me learning whichever language I'm teaching. I tell you study techniques that help me personally. I tell you a lot that I learned the hard way that I can't study while I listen to music because if I do, I'm memorizing the music instead of what it is I'm supposed to be memorizing. And I told you concrete things that I did with the language and things that I do with the language even today. So, I became a professional translator, translated 150 movies and TV shows. I tell you about times I traveled to countries and what I did there, and speeches I gave, and all that sort of stuff. Concrete things I did so that you know how I use the language personally. Oh, I tell you about books I've read. Okay, just because I love to read. That's why I learned so many languages. I tell you everything I do with the language. And of course, the last thing that I hope gives me credibility is a sincere wish as a teacher to be a good teacher. I try really hard to be a good teacher. Okay, the next item was value. This work has value. I need you to understand this, okay? So, even if you say, you know what, I'm done with high school, I never want to speak Spanish, never want to speak French, never want to speak Japanese ever again, that's okay. I think that by learning one of these languages, you have enriched your life. Okay, for one thing, you get more of an appreciation of culture. Look, the world is so interconnected. You are exposed to all these cultures, and now you have an appreciation for why people do the things they do. And then you can reflect back on yourself. And this is really, this is probably more important than appreciation of other culture, is now you're reflecting back on our own culture. Why do we do the crazy stuff we do in America? And you're able to think more deeply about that because now you have seen that the world is a big place, even though it's interconnected, and people do things differently all over the world. And now you can think about, why do we do things like that? You get a better lens to look at it. Learning in this class is going to strengthen other disciplines. One thing is, I hope that every single memorization technique I have taught you is going to help you in history class when you're learning the state capitals. It's going to help you in sports med when you're learning the muscles of the body. It's going to help you in math when you're learning formula. It's going to help you. It's going to help you in all your classes. Okay. And even if you decide you're never going to speak another language ever again, you still see that the world is a big place and it is interconnected. And so you have an appreciation of how those pieces go together. All right, the next item was belonging. This work lines up with my identity. All right, so we talk a lot about social emotional learning right now. Language is communication. You have to communicate. There's no point in learning a language if you're not going to communicate. And yes, reading a book is communication because an author sat down and said, I have an idea in my head that I want to communicate, and I'm writing it on paper, and that's how it gets out to the world. Okay? But you have to communicate when you're learning a language. So you've got that sense of belonging. And I try to make everything really relevant to you. So when we're learning, we're learning food, I want you to be able to talk about the food that you want to talk about. If you don't eat pizza, there's no reason for you to talk about you like pizza. Okay? I want you to be able to apply it. I want you to be able to go into a restaurant and order in the target language. But I want it to be relevant to you because if what we're learning in class has personal meaning to you, the learning will stick better. Okay, so I really want everything we do in class to line up with your identity. We're not making up fake names. We're not pretending to be people we're not. We are using the language the way you want to use the language. Next item was the feeling that your effort is going to pay off. Here's Calvin and Hobbes I put here. You can read that. Well, maybe it might be blurry on YouTube. You have a question, Calvin? Yes. What assurance do I have that this education is adequately preparing me for the 21st century? Am I getting the skills I'll need to effectively compete in a tough global economy? I want a high-paying job when I get out of here. I want opportunity. In that case, young man, I suggest you start working harder. What you get out of school depends on what you put into it. Oh, then forget it. I want you to feel like your effort's going to pay off. There's a reason for what we do. We do work hard in my class. I'm totally going to be the first person to tell you, you have to work hard in my class. This is not an easy A. It's not a coast class. But as long as you're working hard, it is an easy A. You just got to work, right? You have to apply yourself. Efficacy. You need to feel like you can succeed at what we're doing. Okay, so we always build up the skills slowly. We pick them apart. We do little things first, and then we add to it, and then we add to it. Now, French students, mes étudiants de français, right now you're working on matching adjectives to nouns. First of all, we have our knee-jerk reaction. Add an E if you need to make it feminine. What if it already has an E? What if it has an E with accent aigu? And then we worked through what if it ends with an X? And we worked with what if it ends with an F? Now we're working on plurals. What if it ends with an AL and you add that S? Does French like to pronounce that ALS coming? So we always build it up little by little, and then we put it all together. Okay? Français 2, you're working on passé composé right now. So we're working on, we just finished avoir. You're really good with working with avoir. And now we're building up with être. And you've got to think, you've got more balls that you're juggling in the air. I can speak English. More balls that you're juggling in the air with être than we had with avoir. Okay, so it's just taking the little skill and building it up, and then each success leads to the next one. Nope, that was it. That's all I have to say about this. I liked this list, and I wanted to talk about it with you so that you can see the kinds of stuff we do in the class. That, I mean, it's all kind of under this air of credibility, but they all really feed into each other, all these things. So, okay, I will have a deeper thought for you on Microsoft Teams, depending on what we are working on in your class right now. All right, muchas gracias, merci beaucoup, arigato gozaimasu. See you at Microsoft Teams.